Today, we're here to announce federal criminal charges against Eugene Henley Jr., a career criminal known as Big U, who used his contacts and leadership role in the Crips criminal street gang, the entertainment industry, and a youth charity to further his own criminal enterprise.
Blacc Sam just fired back online after Big U got officially charged in connection to Nipsey Hussle's murder. And what he said is straight up shocking. After years of rumors flying around, the feds finally dropped a new indictment tying Big U to threats made against Nipsey's life, and the wiretap evidence they've got is unreal. They caught him on recorded calls saying, "I'm gonna kill him, period. I'm gonna murder him," talking about Nipsey Hussle.
Charges against Mr. Henley and his associates reflect a pattern of crimes that runs the gambit from extortion to robbery to murder to tax fraud and to human trafficking, all under the umbrella of a well-organized criminal organization led by Mr.
That's wild. But here's where things get real deep. This wasn't just some random hood beef. This was personal, emotional, and it's been boiling for over a decade. Blacc Sam's response just confirmed what many have whispered about behind the scenes. There's been serious tension brewing in the background for years. Big U wasn't just another OG from the rolling 60s. He was family. Back in the day, Nipsey looked up to him like a big brother. Their bond was tighter than most blood relatives. That's what makes all of this so disturbing. The fall of trust, the betrayal, the jealousy, all wrapped up in one tragic story that's now exploding for the world to see. To really understand how we got here, you gotta know who Big U truly was. In the streets of Los Angeles, Eugene Big U Henley wasn't some random name. He was the shot caller, a man who carried both respect and fear wherever he went. The rolling 60s neighborhood Crips were already one of the most infamous sets in LA, and Big U sat at the very top of that empire. But here's the twist. Big U wasn't just a street boss. He was trying to clean up his image and make legit moves in the music game. He knew how to play both worlds, the streets and the business, and that's exactly what makes this story so unbelievable. Big U saw hip-hop as his ticket to wash his street money and build something legit, a real empire with his name on it. That's where Nipsey Hussle stepped into the story, and everything started to change. Let's roll it back to the early 2000s. Nipsey was just a young dreamer from Crenshaw, hungry to make it in the rap game. Big U saw that spark in him, that rare kind of ambition, and decided to take him under his wing like a little brother. But this wasn't just some mentor-type relationship. It was deeper, personal, and way more real than most people realize. Big U didn't just guide Nipsey from the sidelines. He brought him into his home. Nipsey wasn't just visiting. He was living there, like real family. Imagine that, the future legend recording tracks right out of Big U's basement studio, built specifically for him. Big U was feeding him, housing him, and setting up everything Nipsey needed to rise from the block to the big stage. That's loyalty, or at least that's what it looked like back then. But things ran even deeper than the studio setup. Big U used his street ties to hook Nipsey up with studio time through Suge Knight himself. You gotta realize how major that was in the early 2000s. Suge still held serious power even after the death row chaos. Working through Suge wasn't just about making music. It meant respect, reputation, and real muscle in the industry. Big U didn't stop there either. He signed Nipsey to his label, Unique Music, for production and co-management alongside Steve Lobel, a respected industry veteran who'd already worked with huge artists. This wasn't some casual street deal. It was a full-blown business move. Big U put in his money, his name, and his credibility to push Nipsey forward. And that's what made it all so real. Big U wasn't just any OG trying to hustle a rapper. He was serious about turning street influence into a music empire. At the time, it looked like he was helping a young star find his path. But behind that loyalty, something else was already starting to brew. Big U wasn't just some random dude trying to act tough. He'd earned his spot. He'd done real time, put in work, and built his reputation from the ground up through years of proving himself in the streets. When someone like that decides to invest in you, it's not just about the cash. It's about honor, respect, and legacy. In the rolling 60s, loyalty ain't optional. It's survival. You show love to the set, and you never forget the OGs who paved the way. But once disrespect enters the picture, everything changes. In that world, even the smallest slight can't be ignored. It's seen as a violation that must be handled. And that's exactly where things started to twist between Big U and Nipsey. See, success has a way of showing who people really are. When Nipsey's fame started to skyrocket, cracks began to show in their relationship. The tension wasn't just about ego, it was about business. Word is, it all kicked off over some music equipment at Big U's shop. It might sound like something small, but in the streets, it's never just about the object, it's about respect. You gotta remember, Big U had given Nipsey everything. He'd opened his doors, fed him, built him a studio from scratch, and put his own reputation on the line to help launch Nipsey's career. So when Nipsey dropped that song throwing shots at him, it wasn't just music, it was personal. To Big U, that diss felt like a knife in the back. That track didn't just make waves online, it shook the whole Rollin' 60 set. Big U suddenly found himself in a tough spot. If he let that disrespect slide, he looked weak. And weakness in that world can cost you everything. It invites enemies, rival crews, and even your own people to start testing you. But if he fired back, he'd be going after someone he once treated like family, someone he helped build from nothing. That's when things turned dark. Big U was torn between pride and loyalty, between keeping his name solid and destroying a bond that once meant everything. This wasn't some random street rival. This was a man Big U had once treated like a son. That's what made the betrayal cut so deep. Before it ever became a hood issue, it was personal. The pain came first, the politics came later. Big U's reaction to that diss track should have told everyone exactly what kind of man they were dealing with. He wasn't about to let anyone, not even family, play with his name. In his own docuseries, Big U admitted he wanted Nipsey to be disciplined over that song. And if you know street talk, you know that word don't mean a talking to. In that world, discipline means getting jumped, beat down, or even worse. That's how serious things got. Big U was ready to have the very artist he raised up get handled for what he saw as public disrespect. That right there says everything. This wasn't about feelings or pride alone. It was about power. In the Rollin' 60s, image and dominance are everything. If an OG like Big U gets disrespected publicly and doesn't respond, it sends the wrong message to the whole set. People start thinking you're soft, and in that life, that's dangerous. It opens the door for rivals and even your own people to challenge your authority. But it also showed just how toxic the mindset in that world can be. Instead of talking it out or finding a peaceful solution, the first instinct was violence. The idea that the only way to fix disrespect is to break somebody down. That's the same mentality that's taken too many lives out there. The only reason it didn't go down right then was because Blacc Sam stepped in. Nipsey's brother wasn't about to let his sibling get hurt over pride and politics. He shut that situation down before it exploded. But that didn't solve anything. It just paused the storm. Sam probably realized right then that Big U was a real danger to Nipsey's safety, and that from here on out, things were never gonna be the same.
And then came March 18th, 2011, the day everything shifted forever between Nipsey and Big U. It all went down near the alley behind the Shell gas station at Crenshaw and Slauson in Hyde Park, the same area that would later become sacred ground in Nipsey's legacy. What happened there exposed just how far this beef had really gone, and there was no turning back after that. This wasn't just some random corner. This was Nipsey's turf, his neighborhood, the very block that helped shape who he was. But that didn't stop Big U from pulling up anyway, ready to handle business face to face. The fact that he came straight into Nipsey's own territory said it all. This was no friendly visit. In street culture, stepping onto another man's block like that isn't just bold, it's disrespect at the highest level. Big U wasn't there to talk things out. He was there to make a statement. The tension that had been building for years was finally boiling over, and everyone around could feel it. But when the confrontation went down, it wasn't even close. This was a total mismatch from the start. Nipsey was just 25, around 125 pounds, built lean and sharp-minded, not a fighter by nature. Big U, a 6'5" powerhouse, allegedly trained in martial arts, built like a wall, and known for using his strength to keep people in line. That face-off was never going to be fair. It was a beatdown waiting to happen. Witnesses said it looked brutal. Nipsey didn't stand a chance physically. Big U was overpowering him completely, using his size and experience to dominate the moment. And it wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about humiliating him.
Big U wanted everyone to see what happens when someone tries to disrespect his name. This was about control, power, and sending a message that would echo through the entire neighborhood. But right when it looked like things could go way too far, that's when Blacc Sam jumped in, and that move changed everything. According to witnesses, Sam, whose real name is Samuel Ascadam, saw his little brother getting worked and refused to stand by. He wasn't about to let Nipsey be taken out right there in his own hood. Sam pulled out his gun and fired shots into the air to break it up, forcing everyone to back off. That moment right there showed what kind of brother Sam was: fearless, protective, and ready to do whatever it took to keep Nipsey safe. The whole scene was chaos, but one thing became clear. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. This was war inside the same family. Now, let's get one thing clear. Blacc Sam wasn't trying to shoot anyone. He fired those shots straight into the air just to stop the chaos and save his little brother from getting seriously hurt. It was pure instinct. Protect family first, deal with the fallout later. But when you in the hood and bullets start flying, everything flips in a second. One sound of gunfire and the whole block turns into a panic zone. Those warning shots might have been the only reason Nipsey walked away that day. Big U had full control of that fight, and there's no telling how far he would have taken it if Sam hadn't stepped in. But that split-second decision came with heavy consequences. In California, firing a gun in public is no joke. It's a major charge, even if you're not aiming at anyone. Blacc Sam knew exactly what kind of trouble he was stepping into when he pulled that trigger. But to him, saving his brother mattered more than his freedom. That's real family loyalty right there. Then things went completely off the rails. According to reports, an LAPD officer fired back, actually shot at Blacc Sam, but missed. The cops later claimed Sam pointed his gun toward them, but multiple witnesses said that was a lie. They swear he only fired into the air to stop the brawl between Nipsey and Big U. The scene was total madness, shouts, panic, and confusion everywhere. Next thing you know, LAPD swoops in, detains 5 people, and starts piecing together what happened. But guess who ends up taking the fall? Blacc Sam. They hit him with assault with a deadly weapon, even though there was no proof he aimed at anyone. Meanwhile, Big U, the one who came to Nipsey's own block, started to fight and nearly beat him down, walked away without a single charge.
That right there says a lot. The man who pulled up, caused the chaos, and threw the first punch faced no consequences, while the brother who tried to stop it ended up in cuffs. The streets were watching, and so was the community. Everyone could see something wasn't right about how that day played out. While Blacc Sam was sitting in a cell facing a felony for trying to protect his brother, Big U was out there walking free. And from that day on, the energy between him and Nipsey shifted for good. What we're learning now from the newly unsealed federal indictment makes everything make sense. It wasn't just tension or hurt feelings anymore. Big U had been plotting for years, and the evidence the feds just dropped is absolutely wild. According to the indictment, Big U's obsession with control and power turned into a years-long campaign of threats, intimidation, and straight-up hostility toward Nipsey. Even if he didn't pull the trigger himself, the toxic energy he created set the stage for what would eventually happen. Those threats built a culture where disrespect and violence toward Nipsey became almost normal. The feds aren't holding back either. They dropped a superseding indictment that paints Big U as a violent shot caller who used fear like a weapon. The documents describe him as someone addicted to power, a man who'd do anything to keep people under his thumb. And what they found on the wiretaps? Pure madness. For years, the federal government had been quietly building their case, tracking his calls, and using high-level surveillance to catch every move. What they uncovered showed a man completely consumed by his need to dominate, obsessed with control, terrified of losing respect. In one part of the indictment, Big U reportedly talked about disciplining another Rolling 60s member named OG Crip C. He bragged about having the guy beaten for so-called disrespect, and then said he could have had him killed instead. That's how far gone he was. But it didn't stop there. Prosecutors say he even brought up Nipsey in those same conversations. They quoted him word for word. Big U allegedly said that if things had gone differently, he would have had a problem with any man, and the issue would have been resolved and he wouldn't be here,
or I wouldn't be here. That line sent chills through everyone who read it. Prosecutors are using it to show how Big U tied his entire identity, his status, to life or death decisions. It's not just talk, it's proof of how deep his mindset went. This man was literally talking about killing people, including Nipsey, like it was just part of doing business in the streets. The language he used was cold, casual, and deadly serious, showing a man so caught up in control that he didn't even flinch while speaking about murder. The whole thing paints a terrifying picture of what was really happening behind the scenes all those years. This wasn't just some angry dude popping off in the moment. This was a man who calculated every word. Big U wasn't talking reckless out of emotion. He was calmly discussing the logistics of hurting people, like it was part of his routine. And the scariest part? He was comfortable enough to do it over the phone. But what really seals it, the most damning piece of evidence, came from wiretap calls recorded on December 31st, 2022, more than 3 years after Nipsey Hussle was gone. You'd think time would cool things off, but nope, Big U was still talking wild about him. On that intercepted call, he allegedly said he was bigger than Nipsey Hussle, bragging that he had disciplined Nipsey Huss, and claiming he was bigger than any other rolling 60. Just sit with that for a second. Nipsey had been gone for years, yet Big U couldn't stop bringing him up. That's not grief, that's obsession. He was still chasing validation, still comparing himself to someone who had already left an unshakable legacy.
It's almost chilling. Instead of focusing on the success he already had, the businesses he built, or his own name, Big U stayed locked on trying to prove he was greater than Nipsey. That kind of fixation doesn't just fade away, it eats at a person, twisting their mind over time. But then came January 1st, 2023, and this call right here is where Big U truly showed who he was. On this intercepted recording, he said, and I quote, "If anyone beefs with Big U, I'm gonna kill him, period. I am gonna murder him." That's word for word. That's not frustration talking, that's predator talk. The feds even pointed out how his language made him sound like a hunter, seeing everyone else as prey. He wasn't talking about defending himself, he was talking about hunting down anyone who crossed him. That's a completely different mindset, one rooted in power and domination. And it didn't stop there either. The feds caught even more calls showing his violent state of mind. On one, he threatened to mess up a South LA business just because the employees wouldn't give him a discount. On another, he bragged about hanging out in rival Grape Street territory, saying he could kill every day like it was nothing. All of this paints a picture that's way darker than anyone thought. Big U wasn't just trying to hold on to his name, he was spiraling deeper into obsession, control, and intimidation. Even after Nipsey's passing, it's like he couldn't let go of trying to prove he was the one still in charge. These wiretap statements proved one chilling thing. Big U's violent streak wasn't just about Nipsey. This man was threatening everybody, from random business workers who didn't give him what he wanted to rival gang members who simply crossed his path. Violence was his go-to move. He didn't just use aggression as defense, it was his method of control. Prosecutors say Big U bragged about always keeping 2 blowers, street talk for guns, on him at all times. Even worse, he openly admitted he could pay people to handle business for him, meaning he didn't even have to get his hands dirty. That's next level control. Money, muscle, and fear working together to do his bidding. According to the feds, this wasn't just a few random outbursts. This was a pattern. Big U had turned violence into a full-blown business model. He was running what they describe as a criminal enterprise built on intimidation, power, and reputation. The fact that he was paying others to carry out assaults shows just how organized and calculated he really was. This wasn't chaos, it was strategy. The superseding indictment breaks it down clearly. Big U didn't just rely on his own hands. He used a mix of direct violence and outsourced muscle. He had people who were ready to move on his word, no questions asked. If he wanted someone hurt, it got handled. If he needed someone scared, they got that message loud and clear. And that's where things get dark, because it proves he had both the means and the motivation to have Nipsey taken out, even if he didn't pull the trigger himself.
You don't have to be the one holding the gun when you're the one giving the orders. That's exactly where the federal RICO statute comes in. It was made for cases just like this, to go after the bosses who run criminal operations from the top. Even if they never personally commit the crimes, if prosecutors can prove that Big U built and controlled a network that used fear, violence, and hits to keep power, then legally, he's on the hook for everything that enterprise did. It's a powerful law, and the feds are using it to send a message. If you build your empire on threats and blood, sooner or later, every move comes back to you. When Blacc Sam spoke out online after hearing about Big U's new federal charges, this wasn't some random reaction. This was personal. He's been carrying the weight of knowing exactly what Big U was capable of for over a decade. So when the news broke, Sam's words came from a place of pain, history, and finally, truth coming to light.
What's unfolding here isn't just about two men from the same block falling out. It's about how toxic pride, ego, and street politics can tear entire families apart. Big U once treated Nipsey like a son, welcomed him into his home, gave him tools, guidance, and protection. But the moment Nipsey started standing on his own, that mentorship flipped into control and manipulation. That's not loyalty, that's ownership disguised as love. And the fact that Big U was still running his mouth about Nipsey on wiretapped calls years after his death proves this obsession wasn't temporary, it was deep. He couldn't move on. This wasn't about business, fame, or respect. It was personal, and that's what makes it so chilling. This story also shines a spotlight on something much bigger, how the street mentality can twist even the most promising partnerships into something dark and destructive. Big U and Nipsey could have built an empire together, combining power and purpose. They had the potential to change the game, but instead of communication and compromise, things got poisoned by intimidation and ego. Now, to be clear, the federal government isn't charging Big U with Nipsey's actual murder. That crime was already handled in state court, where Eric Holder Jr. was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 60 years to life. But what the feds are doing is showing a pattern, a consistent history of threats, intimidation, and organized control that ties right back to Nipsey's name. They're not saying Big U pulled the trigger. They're saying he created the environment that made that kind of violence possible. According to the superseding indictment, Big U used fear like a business tool, tightening his grip not just on the LA streets, but on wealthy clients and anyone tied to his network. The new indictment lays out fresh, overt acts, specific examples of him using threats to keep power, to silence people, and to maintain control. And the fact that they've now tied the Nipsey-related threats into this RICO case says it everything. The feds aren't guessing anymore. They believe they've got evidence so solid that it connects every piece together. Federal RICO cases take years to build. Investigators move quietly, stacking every phone call, every witness, every paper trail. So the fact that prosecutors now feel confident enough to name Nipsey in the indictment shows just how massive their case is. They're not just going after a man, they're exposing the empire he built through fear and control. And it looks like the walls are finally closing in. According to court transcripts broken down by YouTuber Abdul Aziz, Big U's extortion ring wasn't just some side hustle, it was a full-blown money machine. When it was booming, he was pulling in serious cash from people who were terrified of what might happen if they didn't play along. This wasn't small change, this was big money built on fear. Reports suggest the operation mainly targeted folks in the entertainment industry, artists, producers, promoters, people who still had street ties but were trying to go legit. They were the perfect targets, successful enough to have money, but too connected to the game to ever call the cops. They knew that speaking up could expose their own dirt, so they kept quiet. And Big U knew exactly how to exploit that silence. But here's where it gets wild. Big U wasn't even trying to hide his moves. On those wiretapped calls, he was talking reckless, going off about Nipsey, about other Rolling 60s members, even trashing his own associates. He was calling people rats, labeling others snitches, bragging about being a hunter, and threatening to kill people, all while the feds were recording everything.
for a man running what prosecutors describe as a sophisticated criminal enterprise, the way he talked on the phone was downright reckless. Most people in the streets know rule number one: you don't talk business over the phone. But Big U, he was out here basically confessing to federal crimes like it was a regular conversation. That loose talk might have been the exact thing that brought him down. If he'd been more careful, if he'd just kept quiet, the feds might never have built such a strong, airtight case. Instead, he handed them evidence on a silver platter. But there's another layer to this story, and it goes way beyond just extortion. According to researcher Al Prophet, Big U's alleged drug operation was also creating major problems for Nipsey, even before their personal fallout exploded. Big U was reportedly using tour buses to move drugs, hiding the operation behind a legit-looking travel agency. And because of that, every time Nipsey went on tour, his own buses started getting pulled over and searched by police. Cops weren't after Nipsey, they were tracking Big U's pipeline. But Nipsey ended up getting dragged into the chaos anyway, all because of Big U's street dealings. Imagine that. The same man who helped launch Nipsey's career was now the reason his name kept getting caught in investigations. The streets, the money, the music, it was all tangled up, and Big U's empire was the web holding it together. Even though Nipsey Hussle wasn't involved in any drug trafficking, Big U's operation still dragged him straight into the crossfire. Nipsey was focused on building a legit music empire, trying to rise above the streets, but every time his name got tied to Big U's illegal business, it pulled him right back into the chaos he was trying to escape. Every time one of Nipsey's tour buses got pulled over, it wasn't just an inconvenience, it was bad press, legal heat, and potential damage to everything he had worked for. Labels, sponsors, and fans started asking questions, and that constant association with trouble could have easily wrecked his entire career. And it didn't stop there. Things got way more dangerous. Reports surfaced claiming that Mexican cartel members had allegedly tried to target Nipsey at a show in Chicago, all because Big U allegedly owed money for drug deals gone wrong. When they couldn't find Big U, they supposedly aimed for Nipsey instead, trying to hurt the rolling 60s and send a deadly message to Big U himself. That's how serious it got. Big U's criminal actions were putting innocent lives in danger, including people who had nothing to do with his street dealings. Nipsey was out there chasing peace, trying to turn his name into a brand that uplifted his community. But Big U's world kept pulling him back into the darkness. It's a heartbreaking example of how one man's obsession with control, power, and street respect can poison everything around him. Big U's need to be feared, to always be the one in charge, created a ripple effect that spread through the entire neighborhood. Families got torn apart, careers got threatened, and ultimately, it cost Nipsey his life. Even if Big U never gave a direct order for the hit, the years of threats, intimidation, and talk of violence created a space where people felt that hurting Nipsey was acceptable, even expected. When you spend years speaking on someone's death, sooner or later, someone's gonna act on those words. That's the real tragedy. Both Nipsey and Big U could have been legends in a positive way. They had influence, power, and voices that could have transformed their city. Instead, one man's ego and need for domination turned everything they built into a story of betrayal, loss, and what happens when the streets never let go.
Nipsey Hussle was already changing the game before his life was cut short. He wasn't just rapping, he was rebuilding South LA from the ground up. Through his community projects, tech investments, and local business ventures, he was creating real economic opportunities for the people who grew up just like him. But instead of standing beside him and helping elevate that vision, Big U used his influence to undermine it. He had all the connections, all the resources, all the respect, yet he chose control over collaboration. Now, Big U is facing serious federal RICO charges, the kind that could lock him up for life. The wiretap evidence against him is intense, full of violent threats, illegal operations, and proof of a pattern that prosecutors say defines an entire criminal empire. The feds aren't playing. They've got recordings, transcripts, witnesses, and years of surveillance to back up their case.
And get this, there are whispers that Big U plans to represent himself in court. That's wild, considering RICO cases are some of the most complex and dangerous legal battles in the system. But judging from how careless he was on those recorded phone calls, it wouldn't be surprising if he made yet another reckless move. The trial's coming up soon, and it's expected to blow the lid off everything. We're about to learn more about the criminal network Big U was allegedly running, and maybe, finally, get the answers that have haunted the hip-hop world for years. Fans, friends, and the whole community have been waiting for this truth to surface. Because at the end of the day, this story isn't just about Big U versus Nipsey. It's about how the streets can twist even the strongest bonds. It's about ego, power, and toxic masculinity turning brotherhood into betrayal. Big U had a chance to be remembered as the man who discovered and uplifted Nipsey Hussle. But now, history might remember him as the man who threatened him, who helped create the dangerous world that ultimately took Nipsey's life. Blacc Sam's reaction to these new charges speak volumes. He's carried this pain for years, knowing there were people behind the scenes who wanted to hurt his brother. Now, with the feds finally stepping in and exposing the full truth, there's a sense of long overdue justice in the air. It won't bring Nipsey back, but it's a step toward accountability for everyone who contributed to that darkness. Because as we all know, the marathon continues. The people who tried to stop it are finally being held accountable, and that's something we can all take strength in. Rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle, and love and prayers to Blacc Sam and the entire family as they continue their fight for justice and peace. The truth is finally breaking through, and it looks like Big U's days of running unchecked are coming to an end. The city's watching, the culture's watching, and the world's ready for closure. If you're rocking with this story and want to keep up as more details drop, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let's keep Nipsey's legacy alive, spread awareness, and stand together as the truth finally comes to light.